Yeah, hello, brothers and sisters. Once again, we have met in the Voice of Truth equals Voice of Peace with Candina Eugenia. And today I'm going to touch on a very critical topic which most dread to talk about. And this is about the mineral salts, or maybe the natural resources that we've got in our nation of South Sudan, and mostly in the African continent in general. And today I'm going to talk about the petroleum that we in Sudan we call azet, because this is the thing that have been causing us to hate each other, to fight against each other, and we kill each other with animosity. No remorse, no mercy, no retreat, no surrender. And sometimes we wonder who really are at center stage of all these clashes. And I pity women, young girls, and children, and those who are disabled, who can't run for their dear lives. And even though they have to run, wherever they go, there is no comfort, no peace, no stability. For example, when they roam in the refugee camps in the neighboring nations, still they meet the torture of their lives. So sometimes it's very critical to understand this situation. And it's all about the resources that we've got in our nation. And we find no one to blame and everybody to blame in general. First of all, I want to talk about the youth, who most of the times I do blame because of their misunderstanding, or maybe the lack of wisdom and knowledge about the cause or the root cause of the great war that we are fighting. And we are busy selling our souls, our blood, our brothers and sisters, our uncles, our fathers, to our children, just because of something we know nothing about. And in their thousands, the youth have been joining the war, not knowing what we are fighting for. And the war is not against any great enemy, as for example we were saying before, during the eras of Mali Revolution, Anyanya 1, 2, 3, and so on, until the SPLA. We were saying Omar al-Bashir is the problem with his Arabism and maybe the Islamism. And I would like you to know that it wasn't the Muslim who are the problem. It wasn't the Arabs who are the problem. It was the regime that misused Arabism and Muslim name just to gain what they wanted to gain. And vice versa, it was all about Blackism and Christianity. But I say there was nothing with Blackism or Christianity. The thing is all about those who wanted to profit or to get the benefit from this Blackism and Christianity thing. That is why we fools on the ground, we crush Christian versus Muslim, the black versus Arabians, not knowing we are all the product of one creator, Allah, or maybe God. So this is what we've got to know today, youth, that we were all along one people. But because of those people who wanted to take advantage of our stupidity or maybe our innocence, so they misused us and we accepted to be misused, thinking that we are fighting for our rights. but not until we lose the war or we win the war. Then you will know whose benefit was it all about. Let's say, for example, John Garang succeeded in combating Omar al-Bashir to an extent that they had a disagreement, and then later had the agreement that there was going to be an inclusion of Sudan Jadid. But before we could see the implementation, the fate came to our brother figure, the patriot of Sudan, and there came the separation of Sudan into Shamal Sudan, Junub Sudan. And look now on the ground. What is there to be proud of? That we won the war or we lost the war? Is more and more and more suffering than before. And as long as the youth will never realize, we will never get an opportunity to see the real peace that we desire, to see the true nation that we long for, to see the humanity that we cry for, to see the mercy that we beg for. Only animosity after animosity, bombardments after bombardments, gunshots after gunshots being the rhythm of the music, the lyrics of our time. Because we, the youth, the energy of the nation has accepted to be used in a negative way. That is the greatest point I have to give in this voice of truth, voice of peace. The next topic is about the elderly. Despite knowing the history they have witnessed and experienced, they never take a chance to teach the youth what was it like and what was like to go through those kind of things that the youth of today are being passed through. And so we just find ourselves going from one chapter to another of the same subject. For example, there was a time in 2013 when the war began far in Junub Sudan, in the city of Juba, and on the hill of the Dihola, the Budi Mountains, my mother cried, "Oh my God, not as still as I'm alive. Is this war going to come when I'm still alive?" And I said, "Ma, what is it? Did you wish yourself dead?" And she said, "I wish it could have waited until I die so that it could come." And when she began to narrate the stories of Anyanya 1 during the refuge in Namalu, Uganda, she said, "I don't want to go to a refugee camp again. At least I have to die in my own homestead, like Ngalongetan, who was bombarded in her own homestead in a village somewhere called, I don't remember the name actually. It was like, it was the place I used to graze my herds of cattle and stock, like the sheep, the goats, and all those small animals we used to keep back at home. It was called Hamili. And during the time of the Great War against the regime of Omar al-Bashir, they came all the way to a place called Auro, a place called Nadilani, then finally at the place called Najopua, where the war was at its core. And there they just drew the long-range missile, missed our homestead by a whisker because we were on top of a high hill, but the bomb just passed in between the hill. And on the other side, it hit Ngalongetan when she was just bathing on the morning caressing sunshine and the heat and warmth of the sun that was coming up that morning. She passed away. Until today, her grave is there on the spot. So that is what my mama dreaded very much, not history repeating itself. And so as she narrated the story to me, I felt that why could it come even after her death? If it was bad in her time, why did she think that if she is dead, it will be okay for the war to come? But the truth is actually that the war is bad in all times. If it was in the past, or in the present, or in the future, we must say no to war. And that is the role played by the elderly and those who are just hungry for the fame that they will get through the positions that they will own, but not knowing that they will never claim any natural resources. They will be given papers, but those who inside them will take the most share of it all. And I remember when there was the gold mines in Lauro, the deals were signed, but no civilian benefited in it. No securities that were given to the people who were mining benefited from it, apart from just the daily bread that they were given in form of just little cash in form of pounds. And even those who were in that time thinking that they were part of it, now they regret belonging to that part. And so that is the greatest truth that we need the youth of today to understand and try to see in form of humanity the necessity that we need to have to invent the peace that we need. And for example, when you see there is these too many militia groups, if they are not called military groups, all are scrambling for one thing, because all want to have the share. If there was a power sharing in between them or among them, then they will be happy to settle and share the cake while the children are crying on the ground, whom we call the citizens of the nation. And it's for us, the youth, to stand up and say, enough is enough. We are going to say no to war and say yes to peace. Because if we have the choice to say no to joining the military, that is not eligible to the nation building, or not for the National Defense Force, which defend the nation from outside intruders, but defend the few from the inside, people who are crying for their rights, for their share, for their belonging, and for their peace. So that is the greatest thing that we have been having in the whole of Africa, and we see the greatest example in motherland Sudan, being divided into pieces so that it will be easier to loot. And if we don't see well, if the youth continue engaging, we will find ourselves being divided into many pieces, like the pie chart or maybe the weather chart, which we used to study the weather patterns. And that is why we say we must talk the truth so that we may understand the formality of peace. And I thank you very much for your time. If you feel passionate about anything you have heard here, go down below and hit the like button, and then you go to subscribe so that you don't miss the coming videos ahead. And then you will go to the comment sections and tell me what truth we need to talk about so that we may promote the peace. And I will simply answer you back in the comment section and get in touch with you, because we are in this together, and together we will win. May love, peace, and unity be with us forevermore.